Sorry for the technical difficulties here. Okay. Why is it locking my orientation? I would like to do up and down. Anybody there? Looks like we got a couple of things here. Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone. It is my computer has had some Wi-Fi issues recently, so I'll do it on my phone. Good to see you there, Dark Lord and Masquerade. Wait for a few more minutes for everyone to get here. Very excited to talk about some things today. Primarily getting monetized here on YouTube. I know that's mostly what I've been posting and focusing on a lot in the last few days, but I've definitely been pushing a little bit more for it because the moment that I can unlocking monetization is the moment I can start putting a lot more resources into the fan film. Sorry, it's a little bit hard to hear. I'm trying to speak a little bit louder. Is that better? I'll mostly just be doing this from my phone here. I'm going to go ahead and put it on a tripod. For some reason, it won't let me rotate it because my orientation is locked. Alright, it's a little bit tough for you. Sorry about that. Got better for everybody. It might just think that my finger was on the microphone at the bottom of the phone. So basically, looking through all of my recent analytics, and just to clarify for anyone who doesn't know, in order to be monetized on YouTube, you have to get 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours within the last 365 days. I had a lot of watch hours fall off from last fall because I had a lot of videos that got a lot of watch time back then, so these last couple months have been kind of difficult to watch hours fall off, but thankfully in the last few weeks here, a lot of my content has gotten a lot more attention and a lot more views, and so it's been very, very exciting to me. And I just checked this morning, and if I get 40 hours today, then within the next 4 to 5 days, after YouTube kind of does all of their bot filtering and analytics confirmations and all of that, then I will be eligible for monetization. If I wake up tomorrow and I see that there's 4,000 watch hours within the last 365 days, it's just a few days process before ad revenue can get turned on, and then after that, I'll start having ads on all of my non-copywritten videos. And basically what that means is just by watching, you can actually invest into film projects that we're working on. So I'll be working on, especially right off the bat, a lot of videos that have zero copyright infringement in them whatsoever. Trying to get those out there, stuff that I think will get some attention on it, and literally all the views and watch time and everything else from those videos will put money into the project. And lately, I've not been able to put nearly as much time into it, simply just because I've been working, trying to provide for myself and family. And but with a little extra stimulus there coming from that, I can actually sort of relax off and do a little bit more, just have more time to spend and working on stuff. Thank you all for being here. Looks like we already have 11 people watching the stream, which is great. That might actually be a Star Wars Fan Animations all-time high for concurrent viewers on a live stream. Sounds like waterfall behind the camera. There's no sound happening in there. I'm not really sure what that might be. I wonder, my phone is charging right now, so I might just unplug that. Does that sound better for anybody? Just Whoever can hear it, may have just been because the speaker is right by the charge port and maybe there's a little current running through there. No, that doesn't really help at all. A lot of audio interference. Interesting. Alright, I'm gonna mute it. Give me just one moment. I'm going to go see if I can plug up a microphone to my phone through here. I'll be right back. Here it is. You all hear this? Is this producing audio? Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? Let me know. Way better? Alright, so that is working. I never actually tried plugging this microphone into my phone. Now I just got to see if I can get it to balance on my tripod here. So pretty new to live streaming, everybody, so I appreciate your patience. I'm just happy to have people here to listen to me talk about Star Wars. My goodness. Alright, just put it low down. You know what, I might just hold it like this. That seems to not really be working well. Yeah, well, at least you're not being waterboarded by the waves of Taboka City. Appreciate that funny comment. Anyone got questions in the chat there? I'm kind of an open mic right now, no pun intended. So there's something wrong with the mic. How does it sound? Does it still sound alright? Okay, so the sound is a lot better. That's alright, perfect. What are the questions on everybody's mind right now? Slide the top right to find the orientation. I know, well, I just flipped the screen. Let's see. Yeah, I would like to do this sideways. I'm gonna try this real fast. Let me know if it is looking weird for everybody, or if it's looking alright. Let's see. On my screen it's saying orientation is locked. Are you all seeing me all neck twisted over there? Hello? Hello? Alright, well, I guess I'll just have to do... I'm not sure, Masquerade, where you're seeing that button at, or where it's supposed to be on here. I've never live streamed from my phone before. This is pretty new to me. Actors. Portrait orientation lock. I don't have the lock on right now. meaning like in my phone settings, and YouTube doesn't have any kind of thing there where I can adjust the orientation lock on it. On your all screens, this will just basically show this vertical and then just blur on the sides. Is that kind of how it's looking for you guys? Right now, for some reason, it's saying orientation is locked on YouTube here when I twist the screen, but not the other way. Thank you, Alexander. Appreciate the support. Just looks as if we were FaceTiming. Alright, well, I guess I'll just have to stay like this for now. Next time, hopefully, I'll be back on webcam. My internet's having problems for anyone who wasn't here when I first started. That's why I'm doing it from my phone, because I can just use data on here. Won't really have to worry about Wi-Fi. Yeah, so looks like I had a couple questions in here. Let's see. Recovery. Basically, what happened with the data recovery is the hard drive was more or less shot. I was able to recover a handful of files from it, some relevant to the project, some not, and I was able to get all the voice acting files back, which is great. It doesn't have to take away any of the work that anyone else was doing, and a lot of the models that people who have worked on the project, who they had sent me models, I was pretty much able to get all of those back, and a lot of the stuff that I was able to find on 3D model sites like Sketchfab, I was able to just go back and re-download a lot of those. Any models that I'd purchased from other services, again, because I'd already purchased them with my account, I could re-download. What I did mostly lose was blend files. So a lot of the models that I had done a lot of custom work on, like my Luke Skywalker and Jabba the Hutt models, where I had done a lot of material and texture work on them. I lost the blend files that have those, so a lot of that stuff's going to have to be redone though, and I haven't had time to go back through and redo everything. Good news is progress with all of the voice actors has gone full steam ahead. We are very close to having all of the main characters voice acting finished, and most characters cast. I know there's a few people who reached out to me with auditions, and I saw a list that I need to go through with that. So anyone watching right now who's auditioned, I promise I haven't forgotten about you. I just need to go through all of it, and just haven't had a ton of time to go through everything. Yeah, so that was a very disappointing season and era where over the summer, for those who didn't hear, I basically had a power outage while I was backing up a bunch of files and corrupted a ton of stuff. And I basically lost the hard drive that all that stuff was on. Thankfully, I have other drives that a lot of other things were on, so I didn't lose everything, but I did lose a lot of the stuff that I put a ton of time into. Thankfully, I've been able to put in some measures to prevent that, like a UPC, uninterruptible power supply, and a few other things. So I will be moving full steam ahead, especially now with monetization well on the way. You can expect me to put in a lot more time. Thankfully, during this season of time, many of you were generous enough to become patrons or donate on Ko-Fi, and those have been incredibly helpful in giving me not only the resources to get some new models, get some PC upgrades, but also to recover a bunch of this stuff and just keep moving forward. I'm fairly certain Avalok did have a hand in the data loss as well, Kaijukin. Almost certain of it. And Alexander, nice to see you here, Raiders Radio Productions. For those of you who don't know, he's got a YouTube channel all of his own. I'd go check it out. It's a pretty awesome channel. Let's see here. What other questions did we have? See here, from the Dark Lord, just curious, I know you said Shadow's Empire was one of your favorite EU projects. Why make a fan project for an EU story that takes place in between episodes 5 and 6 compared to, say, 4 and 5, 1 and 2? Well, I mean, Shadows of the Empire is just probably the most complete thing that takes place in between any two stories. Outside of the Marvel comics and a few short stories, there's not really anything else in between 5 and 6 other than Shadows of the Empire. Whereas with 1 and 2, you have 10 years worth of stuff, right? Tons of stories. Outbound Flight, the Republic comic, the Jedi Quest books. What else we got? The Approaching Storm, and a bunch of comics too, open seasons and Bounty Hunter and such. Clone Wars is huge. You know, it's a dozen books easy, and then tons of comics and other games and stuff with all of that. And in between 3 and 4, obviously, is a huge swath of time with a bunch of stuff in between. In between 4 and 5 is a good deal of other stuff too. A lot of comics, a good dozen novels, and a bunch of other stuff. So Shadows of the Empire was just the one where it's like it fills the majority of the gap between these two movies. I think in between 5 and 6 is actually the shortest turnover rate in Star Wars movies within the EU. It's just 1 year, whereas every other gap is, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, 19 years, and yeah, Kenobi is a great example. Kenobi would be a fun fan film to work on at some point, given that it has just a smaller cast, some locations, not a whole lot of fancy props and sets, locations, and environments, and all that kind of stuff. Um, Welcome, Darth Malik. Hello there. Kaijukin responding before I could get to it with old Kenobi. Thank you, Kaijukin. Um, yeah, so a few people in the Discord have been asking, and I've answered this question quite a few times as well, about other projects outside of Shadows. I don't want to myself. I still have one project that I'm still working on, but um, other stuff that I would like to work on at some point. I think probably the best starting place is taking something that reuses the same models, and just keeping a lot of the same cast for characters as well. And so a lot of good ideas I've had is obviously Shadows of the Empire Evolution would be a great next step after Shadows of the Empire. Bounty Hunter Wars and some of the Tales of the Bounty Hunters short stories as well. Fit right in there, with Jizor, Vader, the Emperor, all the cast of Bounty Hunter characters, right? A lot of overlap there. A lot of similar locations and environments. A lot of models that I can just copy and paste from one to the next and really just focus on animation, the lighting, the filmmaking, that kind of stuff. And then another good one would be Truce at Bakura. A lot of the OT heroes like Han, Luke, Leia, so forth and so on. All of them, if I already have models and voice actors for a lot of those characters, I could probably do quite a bit with that story as well, even though it does have a whole new planet and a lot of new environments and whatnot. Yeah, Kudar Mubat, he's one of my favorite characters from the Hunter Wars trilogy. I really like that one. Um, um, because I'd have to do a whole lot of stuff with the X-Wing characters, foreshadows, such as Wedge and Wes Jansen, kind of transposing them into a, Rogue Squadron adaptation story. I'd probably start with something simple, like the Rogue Leader comic, which really only has a small group of characters from the Rogue Squadron books that so overlap with Shadows of the Empire, and it's a prelude to the Rogue Squadron comics. That would probably be the best place to start if I'm going to start adapting any of that material. But what are your all's favorite EU projects that kind of have a lot of the OT heroes and environments and locations and all that? Just want to get a good idea about what you guys think. While I'm waiting, Gonga Sleep, welcome, General Kenobi, the obligatory font. Um, let's see. Thank you for your encouragement there. I appreciate that. Nice to see some fans from Portugal here. The Han Solo trilogy is really good, and yeah, that would be a really cool one. Especially a lot of the stuff with like the huts and Tatooine and um, breaking Chewie out and all that sort of stuff. Shadows of Endor, that's a great pick from the Dark Lord. Um, yeah, that's a really good one. The other Tales series, those are great as well. Um, Hello, Captain Keeley. Good day to you as well. appreciate it. Let's hope we can get monetized here pretty soon. Um, just less than 40 hours away at this point from meeting that milestone. Um, Speaking of the Tales short stories, I'll still be listening to or reading here for other great EU books kind of set in that era. But speaking of the Tales series, I have a little bit of announcement I'd like to announce in this live stream. I'll make a whole video dedicated to it coming out and a little bit more official. But for those of you here, I have a special treat. So there is a fan project, a fairly large fan project, I would say, called Tales from Boon to Eve. It is basically the same sort of thing as like Tales from Jabba's Palace or Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales from the Bountyers, and basically what it is taking the Boon to Eve pod race from Phantom Menace and kind of just making a slew of short stories focused around the characters in that. Hand of Thrawn 45, who's probably the most famous Star Wars fiction writer, he's a part of it. Other YouTubers, Quinlan Boss is a part of it, and I'm trying to think of some of the other names. I can't remember the names of all the authors. I remember their Discord names, I can't remember their channel names. But a lot of other great EU fans and EU YouTube are a part of it, and I am actually going to be writing one of the short stories for that fan fiction collection titled Fallen Prince, Jizor's Tale. And basically that story will revolve around Prince Jizor during the Phantom Menace. In one of my most recent videos, I went through how was a Micro Machines mini of Jizor about like that tall that they put on the set of the Boon to Eve Stadium, and they had not toothpicks, cotton swabs, right, Q-tips that they'd colored and just basically filled out the whole miniature stadium, and basically that whole set had it had other Machines toys in it as well, but because they put Jizor there, it would be very cool to see a story centered around him in that era. And we know bits and pieces of Jizor in that era. We know that his father is King Haxum of one of the provinces on Falleen. We know that he is at least a minimum of 68 during the Phantom Menace. In the New Essential Guide to Characters, it stated he was born over 100 years before the Battle of Yavin. And so, with the Phantom Menace being in 32 BBY, he'd have to be a minimum of 68 at that time. Also know near the end of near the end of Darth Plagueis, after the whole catastrophe on Raltier with Alexei Garn, I never know how to pronounce that. I'd like to hear how you all pronounce his name, but Alexei Garn, who was the Underlord of Black Sun at the time, and how Maul just completely wiped out him and all of the Vigos in leadership of Black Sun on Raltier. Jizor survived all of that, and Higo Damask / Darth Plagueis, he postulates that Jizor and or what was his name? It's the guy from the Droid series, Size Fromm. He's one of the main villains of the animated Droids TV show. But Higo Damask postulates that either Size Fromm or Jizor will take over Black Sun. Of course, we know Jizor doesn't become a Vigo until after the Republic turns into the Empire, and so I wanted to write a short story set in that period about how Jizor came out of the sort of ashes of Black Sun. And one of the things that's stated in the Shadows of the Empire source book from West End Games is that Jizor's father, let's get a little micro short story about him during the sort of destruction of Falleen. But Jizor's father kind of thinks to himself about how Jizor was once, the crown prince of the Haxan province, and he basically, left the galaxy in search of adventure and that kind of thing. And so sort of put all of those things together into a story that really makes Jizor confront whether he's going to take his noble path or whether he's going to cling to the path of Black Sun during the period, and and it, it connects to him end up being at the Boom to Eve pod race and meeting Jabba the Hutt for the first time. And as we can see in Shadow Empire, he is already has kind of a relationship with the Hutts, and we see that as well, throughout other appearances of Prince Gizor. But anyway, so I am working on that. I'm very close to being finished first draft, and by the end of the month, most of us, all of us authors should have our first drafts done. If not, the final draft finished, and we'll be putting that together and putting it out as an ebook, but also making like printable copies. So if someone wants to make a Lulu copy of Tales from Boom to Eve, those will be available for fans such as yourselves to print and add to your collection. It's a shame that Lucasfilm stopped doing those projects with the prequels, but recent comment here: will it be animated? My idea is the full project. I think it's doubtful that the full project will get that treatment, but at least Gizor's tale I would like to see animated at some point. I already have a fantastic voice actor for Prince Gizor, and a great model of him made as well. And I think that with a little bit of time and effort, we could probably put something like that together. And of course, it would only be a short story, maybe 30 or less pages, and so it would be more of a short film or maybe like a TV episode length sort of project if it ever did get adapted. But maybe, somewhere either after Shadows is finished or, maybe halfway through finishing it or something like that. I could put something like that together, and hopefully it would turn out pretty good. Alright, we got a few more here I want to get to. I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's see. Welcome to everybody who has recently joined us here. Got you in here. Gong's late, getting late here, mate, but you're doing such a phenomenal job at Free Passions for it. Appreciate that. Star Wars Marvel Purist, great to see you here. Thank you. Yes, I really love Shadows of the Empire. People could not tell, it's one of my favorite EU stories, and I really just love multimedia projects in general. Like, it feels like one of my favorite things about nerd culture in general is just sort of, investigating the lore and, going through all the different scrolls, so to speak. And, that's one thing I love about Tolkien, too, is you have, the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, and then you also have the Silmarillion and the history of Middle-earth and all the other books that Christopher Tolkien, his son, kind of put together, using the verbatim words of his father, kind of Frankensteining different drafts together and fleshing it out so that every word on the page came from Tolkien, but he, as an editor, sort of compiled it together. But whenever you're reading it as a fan, like, it all just comes together so well. And it's the same thing with Star Wars multimedia projects too. The Clone Wars multimedia project, and trying to figure out the timeline of everything, and trying to figure out, you have things happening concurrently, like in Shadows of the Empire. You have a scene from the book and a scene from the Gloob comic, which are almost exactly the same, and then you have a comic book, in the Shadows of the Empire main comic book, you have, that scene being extended a little bit, and then you have in the source book, you have a little short story extending that scene even a little bit further. And so basically there's just a lot of really, really cool, really cool things that you can kind of put together with that. Alright, we got a few more comics here, or comments. Yeah, that is actually a moment that I definitely want to foreshadow there from the Dark Lord. We have, there's the sheer irony that Gizor is watching a kid racer who would grow up to become the man that bombards his home world and destroy him and his skyhook, not to mention. Don't want to go into too much details on the story there, but I thought it would be kind of cool to basically have Gizor betting against Anakin at the pod race, and then whenever Anakin wins and he loses a bunch of money, he would, like, his hatred of Anakin would start in that very moment. And, of course, Gizor would learn later on that the name of Vader was Skywalker. We'll never see in, actually, Shadows of the Empire, or actually now, I'm thinking about this live on the air. Maybe if I could add a little moment where Gizor either thinks to himself or expresses out loud that he didn't know it at the time, but when that kid crossed the finish line at the Boone to Eve pod race, that's where his hatred of Anakin Skywalker began, and that continued on and whenever he became Vader, because you do see in the very prologue of Shadows of the Empire that Xizor does discover that Vader's real last name is Skywalker, and it wouldn't be more than a few lucky guesses before he discovers that that Skywalker was Anakin. Let's see. Yeah, the Tales from Boone to Eve project sounds great. Yeah, I do think that I'm really excited to read all of the other ones as well. There's Gardula's Tale, which is really cool, I think. That's one I'm looking forward to. I know Quinlan Voss's story, I forget the name of it, but I've read the synopsis about it, and it sounds really cool and interesting as well. Sebulba's Tale seems like a really interesting one too. So I am using actual voice actors. Some of those voice actors will have AI filters applied to them. So those voice actors are also going to be called performance drivers. Basically what that means is, in the same way that like a lot of people have like a toy Darth Vader helmet, a lot of us had those as kids, where there's a little microphone in it, and then it goes through a little audio processor, and then out comes a Darth Vader sounding voice, right? It just deepens it, adds a filter on it, all that sort of stuff. There are AI tools that do essentially the same thing, where I could sit here and say this word, and then the same voice would come out sounding like SpongeBob or something like that. It would be the exact same tone, pace, cadence, pitch, dynamics, all that kind of stuff. But the, exact frequency of the audio, the exact amplitude of the wave, right? I mean, all audio is essentially frequency and amplitude, and it just adjusts that a little bit to better fit the actual actor, the original voice that you're trying to clone or copy from. So I'm not doing text-to-speech or anything like that for the voice in the fan film, but there will be it'll be mostly real voice acts with no filters applied, but for characters like Luke or Leia or Boba Fett, for instance, the original actors who play those characters are just way too iconic. One of the gentlemen in the chat right now, Kaijukin, is our Boba Fett voice actor. He did a great job voicing him, and it sounds really awesome with the Tamira Morrison filter applied. So definitely very excited to have him specifically, and all of our other voice actors who are taking on the honor of bringing these characters to life in a way that through this audio processing process wouldn't be possible otherwise. Let's see. A few more comments here. Yes, Dark Lord. It's similar to AI song covers, though AI song covers are a little bit different because they are, essentially taking like, Rihanna singing "Stay" and putting Plankton's voice over it, so he sounds all, dramatic and deep and all that kind of stuff. I've heard examples like that too, but yeah, essentially it's that same thing, except the voice actors who are doing this, they know up front, like, there's going to be a filter applied, but I want to give it the best sort of upfront sort of sound that sounds as close to the original voice as possible. And the filter is literally just like, it's like vocalists singing and applying auto-tune to it, or pitch correction, right? They're putting in an input and they're using some digital post-processing to just perfectly pitch their voices. And essentially that's what we're doing here. Voice actors are doing their best impressions of these characters, and then the AI filter at the end of the process is just adjusting that ever so slightly to just perfectly finish it off. Yeah, Akbar, that's going to sound great. Actually, our Akbar voice actors already recorded all of this, I believe. Or, let's see here. I know the person who's doing Akbar is also doing a couple of other characters, but anyway. Are you adding any of your own or removing any scenes from the original from Finn Mertens? So basically, I am adding a few scenes, but none of these are ones that I have written from scratch. So basically, what that means is there are certain scenes that are in short stories, or they are in source book, like there's one specifically. I'll go ahead and sort it the bulge here. In Jedi versus Sith, which is the new essential guide to the Force. Yeah, that's the full title. Jedi versus Sith, the new essential guide to the Force. Tia, who is essentially the in-universe author of that guide, um, she talks about how she interviewed with Mara Jade, and Mara Jade recalled from her point of view this interaction that she had with the Emperor, and then after that interaction, Lady Lumia came into the room and into the picture, and by simple deduction, that scene would have to take place concurrently to shoot the Empire. So, sorry, my voice is a little scratchy. Um, so basically, because Lady Lumia, she didn't become Lady Lumia until after the start of Shadows of the Empire, and she didn't. And Mara Jade was the Emperor's hand all the way until Return of the Jedi, and so that moment had to have happened somewhere in there. And so I took that scene and some of the dialogue is added to it because Mara Jade's recollection is more a memory, it's not a scene. But I took that scene where, you know, the Emperor is essentially talking to Mara Jade about something in particular and then dismisses her, and Vader and Lumia enter the room, and she is dismissed, right? And I thought that would be a cool moment to add. That probably won't be in the first cut of it. There's a lot of scenes that are just straight up in the novel, the comic, and the game that I want to get in there first. But I definitely plan to do some sort of extended editions, adding those kinds of scenes in there. Another scene like that is basically, and this is in the, this is somewhat mixing some of the West End game source, and I think there was something in one of the Wizards of the Coast books that I added into this as well, but there is a moment that, chronologically speaking here, towards the end of Shadows of the Empire, the Emperor tells Vader that he's leaving Coruscant, and he'll be back shortly, but Vader is essentially in charge of Coruscant until the Emperor gets back. And when the Emperor leaves, one of the things he does on this trip is he goes to Abyss. And for the Dark Empire fans in here, Abyss is the place where the Emperor had all of his clones. It's one of the majors of Dark Empire, and basically what I want to do with this scene is take some of the elements, like there's a character called the Constable of Homunculi, there's the Emperor's physician, who ended up taunting his clones, and then there are, what's his name, Jang Dronga, or Jang Dronga? I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name, or exactly how it's spelled, but he's also one of the Emperor's hands, and he's the pilot of his primary ship. And as part of that sort of chronology of events, and it was never really fully told in one story, mostly in Western Games materials or some of the Wizards of the Coast materials, there's these little sort of pieces of this puzzle here, but the Emperor leaves Coruscant, he, you know, gallops around a little bit, I think he visits the Death Star, and then he goes to Abyss to check on the progress of his clones, and then he comes back to Coruscant after that. But I wrote a little scene there that I had the Palpatine voice actor record, that basically have the Emperor go to Abyss and essentially learn the reason why his clones aren't ready, because there was like a lot of telomere destruction. Telomeres are the end caps on your DNA, and they shrink as you age, and whenever they get to zero, they essentially unravel, your cells explode. You know, that's why people will die of old age regardless, is because, mostly because of the telomeres shrinking and unraveling your DNA in your cells. But one of the things that the scientists there on Abyss do is they essentially add a telomere extension that will help to preserve the Emperor's life, essentially. And so, kind of a little Dark Empire tie-in there. Yes, and as the Dark Lord recalls here, he also goes to Korriban. This was actually very shortly after the Battle of Yavin that he went to Korriban, and Jang Dronga, if I'm pronouncing that name right, ended up kind of rescuing him and taking him to go get sort of healed there as well. So that's another scene that I'm going to sort of include in the Shadows of the Empire adaptation. It's not directly in Shadows of the Empire, but it is certainly a bit. Something else I'd like to do, maybe long term, but maybe not in the initial version of the adaptation, is the 1977 comics. Star Wars comics. There is a sizable portion of those comics that place in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And though they really tie into Shadows of the Empire directly, some of the short stories and materials and articles and other stuff that take place that were written sort of after Shadows came out kind of connect the dots a little bit between those stories and this story, because in the first half of those comics that were set in between Empire and Jedi, Leia is searching for Han. She's searching for Boba Fett. But the thing is, she never finds him. And in this whole stretch of time, Boba Fett's hiding out on Gaul, right, as we learn in Shadows of the Empire. But in the 77 comic, she never finds him. And it is said in the first few chapters of Shadows of the Empire that moment in that chapter was 3 months after Fett left on Bespin. That's a word from Lando. Lando's like, Fett hasn't been spotted, or something like that, very early on in the Shadows of the Empire story. And so in between Fett arriving at Tatooine, being assaulted by IG-88, and escaping and going to Gaul, 3 months passes before the main Shadows of the Empire story really ends. And in those 3 months, what was Leia doing? Well, she was out hunting for Boba Fett. She was trying to rescue Han. That is when the rebellion found their base on Arba, and a lot of other stuff went down as well. And then there's a period after the end of Shadows of the Empire, but before sort of the epilogue of Shadows and sort of the last few pages of the Shadows of the Empire comic, where essentially there's a rebel named Tay Vanis, and Vanis is the Boffins get the Death Star plans to, and he's trying to evade the Empire, and Luke and Leia, Han's not in the story. Luke, Leia, and Leia, they basically are trying to find Tay Vanis so that they can get the Star plans back. They don't know exactly what they are, but in Shadows of the Empire, Luke and Dash assault the Saprosa. They get the supercomputer, which has the Death Star 2 plans on board. Then, the Boffins take that. Then there's that, bounty hunter assault on Cothlas, where Luke gets captured. But the plans actually got kind of smuggled out by the Boffins. And those Boffins, after putting the information on it, got that information to Tay Vanis, who then gets it back to the rebellion. But that whole story is told in the 77 Marvel comics. Now, it's a bit serialized, a little less fan movie and more fan TV show kind of situation, but it would certainly work really well within a sort of Shadows of the Empire broader adaptation. And so that's something I'd like to do as well. Not really scenes I'm adding so much as, adapting other things that overlap with that story. So there's that. Let's see here. Got a few other questions. So the Shadows of the Empire soundtrack, I'll definitely be using it. I'm not sure, this is still something I'm debating myself, but I'm not sure whether or not to just sort of copy and paste the audio from Joel Neely's Shadows of the Empire score, or whether or not to have a composer do, their own arrangements of those themes as they best suit the story. It might be a mix of both. We'll just kind of have to wait and see after I actually get scenes finished in terms of animation, exactly how I want to do audio and music for those things. But I'll definitely be using those themes. I know Gizor's theme is really awesome, and we'll probably use some other original trilogy themes as well. Yeah. Let's see. What other questions? Did I miss any here? Let's see here. What else can we talk about here? Just keep this going a little bit longer. Yeah, so as Kajukin said here, a composer would help to transition pieces between the major movements and make it a little bit more theatrical. Joel McNeely's score is great, but it's only 50 minutes, and if I had to guess, by the time that the full Shadows of the Empire film is finished, without all of the edited scenes and extra stuff I was just talking about, it'll probably be around 3 hours. And so not every scene's going to have music in it, just like not every scene of the original trilogy had music in it, but spreading 50 minutes out over that length of time may not be enough unless I just want to copy and paste certain cool pieces here and there, and not only that, but those themes don't really transition super well in between certain moments, and so there's that. So here's another question: how is Dash Rendar's model coming? I've worked in the MetaHuman animator on a few different versions of the model. Dash Rendar's look varies wildly depending on what you're looking at. In the comics and in the Nintendo 60 version, his appearance looks very similar. In the PC version, it looks very different. It also looks very different in a lot of the Topps artwork from those two versions as well, and then in some of the other official artwork, like what we see in the Essential Guides and so on and so forth. There's a lot of variation appearance, so I've just tried to work in the MetaHuman character creator just to see like what look that method can sort of imitate the best and look. I haven't quite come to something that I feel is satisfactory or I feel confident to show. So I'm going to keep working on that a little bit until I have a little bit more I can show for that. So yeah, the PC game cutscenes, how will I include them, how they originally appeared, or animate them? Yeah, so I plan to recreate everything from scratch. I'm not going to take footage or images from pre-existing things and just copy and paste and drop them into the fan film. I want everything to have the same style, the same appearance as much as possible. I might do some things in Blender and some things in Unreal depending on what makes the most sense, but I definitely want the look to look almost as exact as possible between the two. In terms of the PC game cutscenes and the Nintendo 64 cutscenes, I did notice when kind of looking at both of them that some cutscenes exist only or the other, or there's sort of variations on the two. Like for instance, the cutscene right before Dash Rendar goes out into the Battle of Hoth. In the PC version, it's just him talking to Lebo, being a little sassy back and forth with him. And then in the Nintendo 64 version, it's Dash talking with Han. So those are two separate cutscenes, but they could kind of be like one thing follows the other, right? Dash talks with Han, and then Dash goes to, get in a snow speeder, and he talks to Lebo just before he goes out. So I'll definitely include all of those cutscenes as well. There's also a few cutscenes in the Nintendo 64 version that don't exist in the PC version. A few more, rather, such as the one where Xizor and the Emperor discuss the Superga attack, more or less, and how, it's all part of their plan, that sort of stuff. How am I going to approach the fight and shootout scenes, animation and choreography-wise? Are you going for a more over-the-top PT or John Wick style or something more subtle like the OT? That will probably be a little bit of a combination of both. There's no lightsaber battles in Shadows of the Empire at all. Vader whips out his lightsaber a few times, and so does Luke, but there are no lightsaber clashes within the entire story. So a lot of it is blaster on blaster or blaster on lightsaber action. And a lot of the sort of, it's not really a whole lot of choreography in there. There's blocking, of course, like where people are standing when they're doing stuff. Really the only hand-to-hand battle is going to be between Luke and Yuri, and I imagine that would probably be a little bit more fast-paced because Yuri is a robot or human replica droid, and she can move really fast. I'm trying to think, there might be a few other instances of battles like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it'll be very fast-paced and energetic. That's the sort of action I'm wanting to go for, but I don't want like crazy camera movement, anything like that. Here's a fun idea. When Dash flies away from the skyhook, you could have him contemplating changing his appearance to sell his death, and the looks could include whatever versions of him you don't use. That actually is pretty interesting. I don't know, in Shadows of the Empire Evolution, his appearance looks a lot more similar to his Shadows of the Empire comic appearance, and except his hair is brown instead of blonde for some reason. That might honestly be his sort of Clark Kent as he dyes his hair brown, and that's how people don't recognize him. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's kind of a cool idea. Let's see. Yeah, the G88 fight was, yeah, that was a tough level of the game, and like definitely has a lot of kind of action beats in it. It's mostly blaster action though. Let me get some water here. cruising up because my mouth is getting dry. Let's see here. Very fond of Ethan Pro's art for a poster. I haven't seen that art. I'll look it up as soon as the stream is over, but that definitely, I'm looking at any kind of Shadows of the Empire art, whether I've seen it or not before. Can we have Jackson make a cameo on Tatooine? So, Jackson, for whatever reason, he's like one of the, what do you call it? He's one of the, like, laughing stocks of the EU among, especially people who haven't read those comics, and especially a lot of Disney fans who like to rag on the EU is, Jackson is, he gets a lot of flack, mostly for the way that he looks, but I think part of it is, you know, the comic book medium. You're essentially just drawing kinds of stuff and adding color, especially the sort of style of that era, and it might look a little bit more cartoony than how something like that could be portrayed in live action. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of other characters like Admiral Akbar, very much like a, you know, squid, or how Quarrens look a lot like an octopus, or how you know, there's Shivians, which look like a wolf, right? And I think that if we're going to take Jackson and make a 3D model of him, or, you know, if they ever do a sort of live action version of that character, like, you know, they could certainly do it in a way that, you know, looks like it belongs in the universe. In terms of how characters in the comics is, he's a really well written character, a really, really great written character. Like, he's a lot of fun to read, and, you know, and I would say this to anyone in the chat here who's a big EU fan, who does not like hearing Disney fans talk trash about the EU. If any of them ever bring up Jackson, just ask them, have you actually read the comic, or did you just see some artwork? Because, you know, read the comic. The story's great. The character's great. And he doesn't even appear in, I think it's only 6 issues. And one of those issues is issue 108, which came out in 2018. And, but I think he only appears in 5 of the original 1977 issues. So, forgot to include in your original post, but will I also re-record the PC cutscene audio or use the original audio? That's a good question. For Dash, especially because I'm sampling those scenes to make the Dash AI voice, you can actually hear what that sounds like in a couple of my Tops videos that I did, where I have the Tops trading cards for Shadows and have Dash Rendar essentially reading the text on the cards that is on the other side of the artwork for those. Essentially sampled that same audio to make that voice, but it might sound a lot better just to have the original voice from the original voice actor for those scenes specifically, and then my Dash Rendar voice actor, Emmett LaFave, have him, you know, record a performance driving audio for the rest of it. I might try both just to see what sounds better. You know, if it seems really inconsistent to use the original audio versus the performance driving, I might just stick with having the voice actor say those scenes and then put the filter on top. But I might also, you know, I'll probably see how both sound and just pick which one sounds better. Let's see here. If Jackson doesn't appear in the fan film, you could say he took a wrong turn in Albuquerque. I don't know. It might be cool to just make a model of him and, you know, have a background of a shot on Tatooine or something like that. I do plan to include a lot of Easter eggs like that. Like I said, having Lumia in there, having some Abyss in there. There's another short story I forgot to mention that I plan to add in there called The Emperor. It's essentially the Emperor on Mount Tantus with Vader, and Vader delivers Luke's hand and lightsaber. That short story was in, I think it was the Last Command source book, and it got reprinted in the Thrawn Trilogy source book as well. But that scene actually takes place during this interesting period in between Empire and Jedi, where after, in the Shadows of the Empire comic adaptation in issue 1, Vader and the Emperor have a hollow call. The Emperor is very mad. He calls Vader Coruscant. But shortly after that, in a comic book called Clone 1332 or 12233B, I can't remember the exact numbers. he calls Vader to go to Mount Tantus first, and Vader and the Emperor meet there. Vader delivers Luke's hand. Obviously, a sort of foreshadowing of the Thrawn trilogy, and so all these little moments, like having Lady Lumia in there, having Mara Jade even appear in the film. One of the things I want to do is um, there's a few scenes in Jabba's palace, and in the very last scene, right when Boba Fett enters the palace, I want to kind of show a little Erica cameo. Erica is the alter ego, not alter ego. What's the word? It is the alias that Mara Jade uses when she sort of sneaks into Jabba's palace as one of the dancing girls, as told in her short story from Tales from Jabba's Palace, and also sort of recalled in the Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand, and recalled also in the Thrawn trilogy itself. But having Mara Jade appear in there a couple times, I thought of making a 3D model of Izard. What's her first name? Ysain Izard, yeah. Making a 3D model of her and having her appear within the Emperor's Palace as well would be really cool. And not only would that work be like really cool Easter eggs for the Shadow of the Empire fan film, but would also be really, really cool and make things really easy to do future adaptations of stuff that includes those characters. Um, so, let's see here. So having Jodo Acast appear somewhere in the Shadows of the Empire fan film. I need to do a little bit more research on cast outside of the Twin Engines of Destruction comic. I know me and Kaijuken, he's our Boba Fett voice actor. We've talked a little bit about doing an adaptation of that. In fact, we recorded all of Boba Fett's lines. He was so enthusiastic about the character and about that story. He went ahead and went through every line in the comic and recorded them. And so we already have that ready to go on that story, if and when we can ever get started on animating it. But basically, Jodo Cass, he's like a sort of, he's a fake Boba Fett. He is a pretender. He pretends to be Boba Fett to get, to have all the benefits of his reputation and also get these really high-paying bounty hunting gigs. But Jodo Cass became really sort of popular and famous after Return of the Jedi. I'm talking about in universe, in the sense that he took all of Boba Fett's jobs while Boba Fett was escaping his black pit and being hunted down by other bounty hunters after he had just barely survived and was on the mend and healing. And when Boba Fett sort of is like, hey, someone stole my identity and now they're using it to take all my jobs. I'm gonna have to hunt this guy down and show him the meaning of manners and or whatever. Show them what the definition of FAFO means. And but I'm not entirely sure when Jodo Cast really started donning the Boba Fett look. I know a lot of Jodo Cast backstory is in the West End Games guides, and I've not read enough of them fully all the way through to know as much as about his character and what he was up to prior to Return of the Jedi. So maybe not. Let's see here. Let's see here. Well, thank you, Dart. I try to know a lot about stuff. Arthur Lowry, hello. What's up? Yeah, Darth Plagueis is one of the best pieces of Star Wars media. Finn Mertens. I don't know if you've seen this already, and if anyone in the chat has as well, let me know. But the YouTube channel Everest Productions has been using Star Wars movie duels and as well as compositing some stuff in After Effects and editing it up in Premiere. But he's been making a fan film of Darth Plagueis. The voice acting is pretty stellar. The animation is also good. I mean, it's using Star Wars movie duels, which is an older 3D engine, and most of the characters don't have any moving mouths on them. But if you can get past that, like, the filmmaking is really good, right? The direction, blocking of the cameras, the light editing, the sound design and sound editing. It's a really, really good piece of fan adaptations, and really excited for part 2 as well. Part 1 is 2 hours long, so he was able to get a whole thing out there. He also already did Darth Maul Endgame, which was a short story written by James Luceno, set during the Phantom Menace, and so it basically takes Maul's 5 or 6 scenes in the Phantom Menace and sort of adds a bunch of extra stuff in between and through and all of it. and basically has Maul learning about Higo Damask and suspecting that Darth Sidious had somehow broken the rule of two in training him and was learning all of these things right before he dies. So, really good story. Evers Productions also adapted that story as well, which is really cool. I would love to see a sort of fan edit made by him of the whole Darth Plagueis story plus like Maul Shadowhunter, Maul Saboteur, Maul Lockdown, and also like Phantom Menace and Darth Maul Saboteur as well. Like I really love all stories. Jedi Council Acts of War is also a really cool story that really fits in with all of that. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, it is really great. Considering that they can't profit off of it, it's understandable that the animation is on the more limited side. Yeah, and that's something that I've thought about too with my project. Like, if I wanted to just focus on making what is essentially Previz and just cutting that and putting it out there, I probably could get the project out a lot faster. But I really want to take the time not only just to not not only just to learn how to do some of the stuff I need to do, because I'm not a 4-year veteran of the visual effects industry or animation industry or anything like that. So there is a lot I need to learn still to get it to be where I want it to be. But I really want something that is future proofed and that is going to be something that when people watch, they're like, wow, this is a really high quality fan film. And not that all the other fan films aren't, but I do want to take my time with it, and if it being a much slower process, that's a price that I'm willing to pay. So yeah, let's see. We just crossed an hour here, thinking we can maybe go for another 20 or so minutes, wrap around 7:30. Let's see. Um, um, Another thing that's pretty cool is about Shadows is the other games that kind of tie into it. Like the X-Wing Alliance, for instance, basically has two whole missions which sort of overlap with Shadows of the Empire: the Battle of Cothless and the Battle of the Supposa. And these two battles are really cool, told from the perspective of characters in that game. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, pretty cool stuff. In fact, interesting side note: the Battle of Cothless was first depicted in the game TIE Fighter in 1995, and Shadows of the Empire didn't come out for a full year later, and so I'm certain that Shadows of the Empire had already been in development at the point, and either the people behind TIE Fighters decided, hey, we're going to take this moment from this upcoming game, use it in our game. Maybe it was the other way around. Maybe the people in Shadows of the Empire were like, wait, they're doing this thing in TIE Fighter, let's take a little bit more with it. Not entirely sure what the order of that is, but I just think it's really cool how they kind of exist at the same time. Jodo Cast had his armor by 3 ABY and was working off and on for Black Sun. Okay, that actually would be really cool to see Jodo Cast in Shadows of the Empire, maybe in Gizor's Palace, or maybe working in the casino on Rhodia, where Leia and Chewie and Lando are. It would definitely have to be would definitely have to make it so that the hero characters don't mistake him for Bex. I don't want to have to write too much outside of it to be like, oh, he's not actually Boba Fett, but he looks just Boba Fett. I don't know, but yeah, that would actually be really cool. Finn Mertens, after I'm done with Shadows, are there any other stories I wish to adapt into fan films? Yeah, there's quite a bit. I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think other stuff set sort of in that same time period where there'd be a lot of overlap in characters that I could use the same voice actors for, and also 3D models that I could more or less copy and paste with maybe some minor alterations and outfit changes, but and like locations and sets that I could use as well. Bounty Hunter Wars Trilogy has a lot of 3D models and voices, as well as the some of the X-Wing books and comics. True Set Bakura has a lot of overlap, especially in the early chapters. Let me see. Not X-Wing. Shadows of the Empire Evolution, the sequel to Shadow of the Empire, shares a lot of characters and models and whatnot as well. A lot of the Star Wars Marvel 77 comics could fit that as well. Kind of be a little expansion of Shadows of the Empire. Looking over at my bookshelf to see what else is kind of in that era. And then maybe some of the other stories set in between, sort of A New Hope and Empire, like Allegiance and Choices of One. I really like those. Mara Jade by the Emperor's Hand is another really cool one. I might like to do someday. Outside of stuff that shares a lot of models and voices with Shadows of the Empire, a story I really would like to do is Young Jedi Knights and Junior Jedi Knights. Be a nice little sort of YouTube kids TV show made into a little fan film. In fact, in I believe it was 1997 or 98, I think it was Kevin J. Anderson gave this quote. It could be Rebecca Moesta as well, the two co-writers of Young Jedi Knights, but apparently there had been serious talks with Lucasfilm about adapting the Young Jedi Knights books into an animated show for Lucasfilm, but they eventually ended up not going with that path, and I think that's largely because George Lucas was pretty much fully engrossed with prequel stuff at the time and didn't really want to go into many other stories outside that. I know there's a quote from one of those two about why it didn't end up going through, but that'd be a really fun fan film to work on. Young Jedi Knights is one of the best Star Wars stories in my opinion. Lightsabers is probably my favorite one. I really love Tenel Ka and sort of her story, and yeah, it's a really really great story. Let's see, what other ones do we have? Yeah, it's very distinct from Boba, but there's also not a whole lot of Mandalorians walking around, so maybe he could still be mistaken. I'm not entirely sure. I'll definitely take that into consideration though, especially because you yourself did a really good job of manipulating the Boba Fett model textures to make a really cool Johto cast text model that looks almost uses the same mesh as Boba Fett, but has a different texture to it. Let's see here. You heard that Paul Dini of Batman the Animated Series was in talks to be a writer on the Young Jedi Knight show, especially since he wrote episodes of Droids and cartoons, and Ewoks cartoons. Yeah, that would actually be, yeah, that was, I hadn't actually heard that information before. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That would have been an awesome show, especially because Anderson and Moesta were expected to also be executive producers on the show. If it had been like a faithful adaptation of their books, I would have loved that had been made, and yeah, but unfortunately it wasn't, and we're all still sad about it. The Empire's oppression of Mandalore, the planet, the reason why we get a lot of Mandalorian bounty hunters in the OT. Yeah, so in the old 77 comics, they essentially explained that Mandalore was under the iron grip of the Empire. Many Mandalorians were in rebellion against the Empire, those who survived, and yeah, that's essentially the context of which the Mandalorians existed at that time. I hope one day to do what you're doing, but with the Disney canon novels that you like. On the topic of Disney canon novels, I'm not a big fan of a majority of them. I've read quite a few. I kind of gave up reading them recently, though, just because it was one disappointment after the other. But I liked some of the early stuff. Lords of the Sith was alright. Tarkin was pretty good. Catalyst was probably one of my favorites. Lost Stars was pretty great. I like all the new Zahn books. They're not nearly as good as his EU stuff was, but they're still pretty good. And what other ones have I read that I like? Yeah, that's pretty much all of them. But you know, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing those. I just don't have the passion for those books in particular to really invest into making any adaptations of them. Let's see here. Yeah, Kaijuken, that would be awesome. It would actually be pretty cool to find a way to sneak him in shadows in some way, even if it's just as a background cameo. Easiest thing would be for a cameo where other characters of significance see him and confuse him for Boba. Yeah, that would actually be really cool. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of like spook gangs and all that in Jabba's palace. There's several scenes like that. It'd be pretty cool to see him sneaking around, either that or have him just in a scene with other Black Sun folks inside of Jizor's palace or thing, without all the other hero characters there. Quinlan Boss, welcome. Thank you on the haircut compliment. Just got a haircut a few days ago, so it's just a little bit shorter than it's been the last few videos I've done. Let's see. Paul Dini also wrote for TCW, one of the Duchess Satine centric episodes, I believe. Ah, okay. I didn't know that either. I have very mixed feelings about those episodes, as some of the stuff with Watch is really cool, but also very much so conflicts with the Commando novels by Karen Travis, which are some of the EU's best, especially during the wars. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of conflicts of interest there. I'm not going to go into the whole TCW topic here, though. What do I think of Bane Malar? I love his short story. Bane Malar. What is that from again? If you could remind me. Is that about Darth Bane? Or is that someone different? You did this project a week or two ago and very invested now. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I very much appreciate it. Love having new subs and new viewers come here and discover the project. And very excited to have everybody just kind of coming together on this. The last few weeks I've seen a pretty big boom in interest and support in the project, even though it's something that I've been working on for, well over a year now. It's still great to see new people find it, and definitely appreciate just sitting here watching this live stream. Let's see, what other comments we got here? Yeah, Dark we'll not go much into TCW. I know we've talked about this quite a bit in the Star Wars Fanimations Discord, but yeah, it's cool that Dini has been involved with Star Wars for a while. Would have been really awesome if he had been part of the Young Jedi Knight TV show, though. I would have loved to have seen that. Sorry if I keep pausing. I'm just trying to keep up, trying to keep thinking of things to talk about, interesting things. Bounty Hunter, Guard, and Jabba's Palace had some force abilities, reads minds, and push suggestion. Oh, that guy. Yeah, okay. I remember now. Yeah, those short stories were really cool. It's been a long time since I've read any of the Tales short stories outside of the ones that directly overlap with Shadows of the Empire, such as Therefore I Am and A Bard Like That. I've read through those a bunch of times just because they are a part of the first scene I've been working on here. So I've reread through those quite a bit, but I haven't read that one in quite a bit. I forgot the guy's name. Yeah, those guys are pretty cool. Let's see. There's got to be some other cool stuff for us to talk about. Back on the topic of monetization for a moment. One of the things, because I've had a few people kind of ask questions about stuff, and some not so positive as well. And one of the things I kind of wanted to sort of just clarify here is that I'm not trying to get monetized just so I can fill my own pockets and then just kind of keep this project stringing along. I know it's been a long time since I announced I was working on the project. Since then, the only concrete thing I've released is the opening crawl and 2 Previz scenes. And one of those I'd released in Animatic first and then re-released a Previz of it. And that Previz had been updated a bunch of times on Patreon, so Patreons have seen the progress a little bit more than YouTube has. But, it's been a slower process, mostly just because, just time and money's gotten a little bit, and with the data loss that happened back in early June, as well as just some of the other attention to making videos for the channel, not part of the fan film specifically. It's been hard for me to find the time to really get everything everything I need to get the watch time up, and sorry, I'm mixing up sentences now. To really put the time and effort into actually working on fan film scenes. And there's still a few things like, even after the power outage thing and my hard drive got fried, like there's a few other things that have just been a lot slower for me. For whatever reason, the internet reader on my PC has also been really slow, so my upload, download, even just browsing the internet can be a lot slower now. That's one of the reasons why I've not been able to live stream as much, even though I probably could have gotten monetized a little bit sooner if I'd been a little bit more regular with live streams. Um, just the fact that my internet's not, my internet connectivity isn't as good right now, and I've also had to downgrade my internet plan not too long ago just to, not have a high internet bill there. But I don't want anyone to think that I'm just, stringing this project along and um, not ever going to actually finish it or release anything concrete. My full intention is to finish project and not to profit off of it. I mean, technically that's copyright violation right there. Um, my main goal, I mean, if there ever came a day where, just by posting regular videos, I could make, doing YouTube a full job and then work on this fan film with, personal funds, I would do that 110%. But at least for the time being, I do want a lot of the revenue generated from monetization and Patreon and all of that. I want to put that into the project. I want to invest that into, getting new 3D models, and really, with monetization, I'll actually have the funds to start commissioning help on stuff so that things that I'm not as skilled at or don't have the time for, I can outsource to people who do have the time, energy, and skills to really assist in that way. And that would definitely go a long way towards creating the project. And so I did just want to sort of clarify that, because I've had a few people reach out to me with not so negative opinions about how it seems like for the last few months all I've talked about is money, 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 and that's not not the sort of I'm going to make, and I apologize if that's the impression I've given to anybody. I definitely want this project to be thriving as much as it can, and recently the barrier for me to put the time and energy into it that I need has been, um, both financial and also just there are certain things that I do need to bring some help in for, and certain computer upgrades I like to make in order to make those things happen as fast as possible. And so I just wanted to clarify that just to make everything clear. And for those of you who have been supporters on Patreon and Ko-Fi, I greatly appreciate everything you all have done to help me both recover from this project, invest into getting new 3D models, and so on and so forth. Let's see. Kajuken, trying to learn Blender so that you can model a Yuzong male and female warrior. Ideally, I will figure out how to make armor removable so we could have Luke wear it like on the book cover. That would be some pretty cool art. And yeah, I talked earlier about stuff about projects I'd like to work on at some point. Young Jedi, not Young Jedi Knight, I already mentioned that. New Jedi Order is definitely sort of the cream of the crop, the crown jewel, so to speak. I would love one day make like a serialized TV show of that. I don't know if some Star Wars fan filmmaker will beat me to it or not, but there are that is definitely a project I would love to do at some point once I know I have the time and resources to do it. Is my animation going to be like Dark Angelus's? It's going to be a fairly different style. My animation style goal is for it to be as close to photorealism as possible. I'll be doing most of my rendering in either Blender or Unreal Engine. He has been using, I believe it is, NVIDIA Omniverse to render his stuff, and a lot of the sort of lighting and animation with that has been like, I don't know exactly how to describe it. Probably the goal for me at least is for the animation style to look like really, really high-end video game cutscene. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is that there's just a lot of video game assets out there, a lot of Star Wars models from a lot of recent Star Wars games, and a lot of Star Wars models that fans have made on the internet and put out there that look more or less photoreal, and so it definitely is a very low barrier to make a fan film in that style, just because there's so much stuff already available. And two, I do want it close to, as if in 1982 Lucasfilm said, all right, just finished Empire Strikes Back, let's make Shadows of the Empire, and then we'll make Return of the Jedi. Of course, it's not going to look like that purely in live action, and there's also a really cool factor. This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, is a lot of the recent AI advancements that are out there. This is still very early, and I don't expect to use this on the project anytime soon, but there are a lot of new AI video models in place where you can essentially input something that is not photoreal, meaning doesn't look like it was legitimately captured by a camera, such as like a video game or something like that, and the AI will output something that looks almost perfectly photoreal. I saw a demo of that where someone took footage from GTA 5, so even a little bit older video game animation from, when did that come out? Was that like 2012? I think GTA 5 came out. So 12-year-old video game animation, and they put this filter on it, and the animation still doesn't look as photoreal, because even if something can sort of bend the light and pixels of something to make it look like it was captured by a camera, something isn't moving like a human moves, if something isn't, if the video game physics look off or something like that, the output is to be perfect. But even at some point, maybe after the fan film is finished, going through and remastering it with this sort of photoreal video AI on top of it, and using that to make it look like, hey, it came out in 1981, 1982, and this is the closest thing you are ever going to get to seeing what it would have looked like if Shadows of the Empire had actually been made in the 80s. And so, I would love to do that at some point, if and when that technology ever becomes available and whatnot. I think I'm doing a great job, and always doing your best to bring Shadows of the Empire to life, especially since you have to balance it with job, family, and maintaining a home and social life. Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that sentiment. I wish I could be a full-time fan filmmaker and all of that, but unfortunately, due to copyright laws, I cannot, purely sustain myself off of that. Thankfully, making videos about Star Wars monetizable legally under fair use, and so that's something I've been putting a lot of effort and energy into recently, because I would like to have more time and money to be able to put into this project, put into this channel, and make some really awesome stuff for all. So, yeah, a Star Wars life is the dream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Yeah, so we're almost around 7:30 here. We've been streaming for around an hour and 25 minutes. We've consistently had anywhere between 6 and 10 people. I mean, that right there is at least, what would that be? Something like, this stream alone will probably get something like 10 hours already, is probably what it's already. We're at a high at, I think, about 13 concurrent viewers, which I think is actually a record for live streams on this channel. I've only done 3, but I think that's the highest we've ever gotten concurrently. And wow, now it's at 9. Okay, maybe I'll go for a few more minutes if we have concurrent viewers. But yeah, so if we could, let's see if we can get 10 concurrent viewers and all that, we could get at least 10 to 15 hours out of this stream. And if I need 40 today, today there was, for whatever reason, somewhat of a low amount of views compared to the past week, though the past week has been way above average, and even today has been above average compared to what it was a month ago. But because a month ago I'd be getting anywhere between like 50 and 100 views, and on, I think it was September 3rd, I got like 6,000 or 7,000 views in one day, and that was after the times George Lucas referenced Shadows of the Empire in episodes 1 through 6 video that I did. That video did really well. Of the 900 much hours I've gotten in the last 10 days, that video has accounted for like 630 or something like that. I'm Don't know why the YouTube algorithm just picked up that video and plastered it everywhere, but I'm really glad that it did. Um, and I'll probably make a few more videos in that line of work. Basically, I know there was a lot of EU references in the prequels as well. A couple of those I mentioned in that video, but like for instance, Ayla Secura and Quinlan Voss being mostly characters spawned out of the comics and referenced in either pictured or referenced in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. You know, Coruscant was originally in the Thrawn trilogy, and George Lucas decided to go with that name and that design for the planet in the prequels. And there was just a lot of other instances in that. I'd have to do a little bit more research to get an actual number, you know, X number of times George Lucas the expanded universe in the prequels. But I think a video like that would probably all do pretty well. But obviously, when I make that video, I would like it to be monetized. So I'm gonna wait a few more days to see before that happens, before I actually get that out there and in the world. But I don't know where I was going with all this. Oh yeah, numbers. So, but I bet probably as of right now, if I'm doing math right, if we've averaged something around 7 viewers, and we're already at almost an hour and a half, that would be what would it be? 7. That'd be around 10 and a half hours, maybe 11, because we did hit a few peaks, around 13 or so viewers. So I think if everybody else got, with all the other views I've gotten today, which has been a couple hundred, I think, maybe 300 or 400. I can't actually remember the final number there. But I think with the number of views I've gotten today, the number of hours I've gotten on this stream here, I think we could do pretty good. There are better clips than this, but I figured I'd send the link so you can start taking a closer look at. So Alexander, I don't think links are actually able to be sent in live stream messages. If you want to comment that down below, I'll definitely take a look at that. Yeah, so I think I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. We just crossed 90 minutes for this stream. I think that's about where I'll wrap up. But if you all want to help get me over the finish line, I think this stream alone is going to account for at least 10, if not maybe 15 hours by the time some people pick it up after it's ended. If we can get 10 or 15 hours out of this stream, and 25 hours just from regular video views, if after I end this stream here, if everybody goes and watches 30 minutes to an hour of my other videos, guaranteed will be at the 40-hour watch hour mark for today. And I'll wake up tomorrow morning and my video analytics for 9/12 to 9/12, 2023 to 2024 will be 4,000. Hopefully above that a good amount as well. And within the next 4 to 5 days, I will be able to start running ads on my videos. So I appreciate everybody coming in here and watching for this time. And you all have the rest of your night. And until next time, may the force be with you.